Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another episode of our Webflow optimization journey. Now, I know that for the past week I haven't published any videos. My bad guys. In fact, this is the fifth time I'm recording this episode. So, in this episode we're going to build our Webflow form section. We're going to talk about the labels, we're going to talk about how to scale up our form, and much more. So being said, let's roll the intro. Okie dokie, so we already did an amazing job so far, guys. We talked about using different HTML tags and why it's important to use these HTML tags. We optimized fonts, we talked about optimizing the images, we talked image spriting, we talked how to lazy load those images, we talked about the alternative tags, we talked about the contrast ratio. So in today's video we're gonna build this section right here. Now I changed it a little bit so we have more to cover. So what I did is I've added the new input right here. We're gonna use the select input type. Yeah, we're gonna build some icons inside, we're gonna build some buttons. So we're gonna talk about how to scale up our input fields when we have more content inside, like the icons or the field labels, which are super important for our accessibility. And then we're gonna talk about different field types right here. Yeah, why it's important to use a proper field type. And then lastly, what I also wanted to cover with you guys, I think I need to cover these. So we're gonna talk how to properly structure your section inside the Webflow. And we're gonna start this by a really great example here in Adobe XD. How we structure our section inside the Webflow. Well, really simple. So when we translate our design from Figma or from Adobe XD, doesn't matter what application you're using, guys, we have to build this section first inside our UI UX application. Let me arrange a little bit my microphone. Good. So what you see right here, this is our form section, and I called it form section breakdown so you can understand how I have designed and how I have structured this section. So what you need to understand is HTML, it's not difficult. HTML, in fact, it's like your design in your UX UI application. So if in Adobe XD you have artboard, guess what? In web you have the body, yeah? And then you have sections. Inside the sections, which are basically a group of elements inside Adobe XD, you have groups. So look, here's my section right here, and I already named this form section breakdown. That's my artboard, and inside I'm having a form section. Yeah, this is my form section right here, and inside my form section, so this will be a section with the tag section. I'm having a form container. This is my wrapper for the elements that I'm gonna have inside this section, and I'm also have this background color. So what you can do is you can start naming your groups right here, your elements inside Adobe XD, just like you would name them inside Webflow. The same structure you'll have here, same will goes for the Webflow. So I'm having my form section right here, and then I'm having the container, and guess what? Inside my container I'm having the content from the top, and I have my main form. So just by having this layout, guys, you then know exactly what type of display property to apply in Webflow. So we already covered the display grid, we worked with the display flex, we worked a little bit with the display block, and we know that the display block is the standard display in web. So why I have structured my form container in this way, so the content top and the main form. Really simple, because my form container will be display grid, because I want to control the gap between the content right here on the top and my main form. The chances are I'm gonna reuse this form in other pages, right? And maybe not all the time my form will also have a headline and a paragraph. So just by having this structure inside my Adobe XD, look how easy is that to maintain my gap between my top content that have my headline and my paragraph and between my main form. Now inside the Webflow, when you build a form block, you'll also have this success message and the error message, right? But in essence, the same structure you have right here in your Adobe XD the same structure will be applied to your Webflow page. Okay, so with this in mind, I know that this form container will be display set to grid because I want to control the gap between my top content and my main form. That's it. My form also will be another display grid because instead of using flags and setting margins, I want to use the grid and the grid gap feature to control the gap and the spacing between my elements inside a grid. With this in mind, let's actually hop inside the Webflow and build our section based on this form section breakdown. So here's my Webflow. What I'm gonna do is, remember, the body you have inside the Webflow, the body you have in HTML, is the same artboard you have in your UX UI application. So with my body selected, with my artboard selected, let's do Command A to open up my quick find, and let's paste right here a section. Okay, so we have this section right here. Yeah, if we go back to Adobe XD, we can see that we have this form section right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my mnemonic way of naming my classes and add the name for my section. And chances are I'm gonna reuse this section. Yeah. Usually I don't love using symbols, simply because if you have a lot of symbols, Webflow Designer becomes unstable. So I love to simply have sections or div blocks, or in this case, group of elements that I can copy and paste them inside other pages. So with my section selected, let's add a class. And that's gonna be CTA form. CTA form. Why? Because it's a call to action form. It's a mnemonic way of naming my classes. I have my form, I have my section right here with CTA form. What's next? Well, I know that this is a section. So I need to go to the element settings, and from the tag, change it from the div to a section. Why section, guys? We already covered this in the previous episodes, but I would love to add one more thing here. So in web, your browser render a page. It uses the CSS classes you applied, uses the styling to properly display your elements inside the web page. Properly display the sections, images, headlines, paragraphs, and all of those elements. Now, we know that in web we also have the lazy load for images. We know that images that are outside of the viewport will be lazy loaded, will be loaded once that image gets inside our viewport. Same thing happens with your section tag. Browsers, they don't render sections that are outside of the viewport. So that's why it's important to use the section tag. We want to let the browser know that, hey, this is a section. If this section is outside of the viewport, please don't render it. Good. So just a small thing here to note about the section tag and why to use them. So I know my CTA form section have the section tag. Now I also know it have a background color. So let's go back to Adobe XD. Let's copy our background color from here. Let's go to fill, copy the hex, go back and go to the style pane. With my CTA form, with my section selected, I'm gonna scroll all the way to the bottom where it says backgrounds, and then I'm gonna paste it right here on the color field and hit the enter key. Good. Now my form section have a background. What else? Well, I know that my CTA form have my section have a height, and this height is 696. Let's do 700 pixel. I know that the minimum height my form section will have, it's 700 pixel. With this in mind, let's go back to the Webflow. With my CTA form selected, with my section selected, I'm gonna go all the way to the top, and under the sizes where it says minimum height, I'm gonna do 700 pixel. And now my section will become bigger, will become taller than 700 pixel in case I have more content inside, but it will not become smaller than 700 pixel. Good to know. What else I know? I know that I also have some padding. Why I need padding? Because if by any chance I have more content inside, let's say like this or like this, if I have more content inside, I want this content to make my section taller. So that's why we want to apply a padding from the top and from the bottom. And in order to see how my padding affects my container and my section, I need to drop another div block. So let's drop another div block and add our form container inside. So with my section selected, I'm going to do Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm going to do a div block. Remember, never add a section inside another section. That's not how web works. Good. What I know about this div block? Well, I know that this div block is my form container. If we go back right here, we can see that this is my section and this is my form container. So let's go back and let's add a class. So I'm gonna do form-w, which stands for wrapper. You can do -c, which stands for container. I love wrapper because it's a smaller word. So let's do enter. So I'm having my form wrapper right here. Okay. What I know about my form wrapper? Well, I know that it's limited to 568 pixel in width. With this in mind, let's copy 568. Let's go back to my form wrapper I have just created, and in the size right here for the maximum width, I'm gonna paste my 568 pixel. And now I know that my form wrapper will not become bigger than 568. It will eventually become smaller, but it will not become bigger. It will not become wider than 568 pixel. That's what maximum width stands for. Okay, what I know? Well, I need to click on this magic button, which will align to the middle of my screen, my form wrapper right here. And then from here, what I can do is I can go back to my CDA form, to my section form, and I can start adding the padding. With my option key, I'm gonna drag the padding, and as you can see, Webflow evenly distribute my padding. So with the option key pressed on, Webflow distribute evenly my padding from the top and from the bottom. So let's do 60 pixels. The power of 2, 60 pixel. Oh, 60. Good, 60 pixel. Now, if the content inside this section will become taller than 700 pixel, which is the minimum height of my section, the padding we just apply to this section will push the content and will have this section to become taller. That's it. What else I know? I know that the container, this form container I'm having right here, it's in the middle of my section. With this in mind, I need to think about the display property I need to apply to my form section. So let's have a meditation session here. So it has to be aligned to the middle vertically and also horizontally. What display property can I apply? Well, guess what? That's display flex. So with my CDA form selected, I'm going to do display flex. I'm going to choose the direction vertical. Why? Because the elements that go in my form container, these elements, these and these elements, they're vertically aligned. Like they're not horizontally aligned like these. They're vertically aligned. With this in mind, let's make sure the direction is set to vertical. Let's justify my items to the center. That's it. I don't want to click right here to align them to stretch horizontally. Why? Because it's already looking good. I want my items to be stretched out. Yeah, I wanted them to take the entire width of my 568 pixel, the minimum, the maximum width I've set for my form wrapper. Good. So now my form wrapper, it's a small square 1 by 1, simply because it lives inside a flex parent. So let's do one thing. Let's start adding my elements inside my form container. Let's go back to the Adobe XD and let's have a look. So I know that my form container, yeah, so this is my form container. I know my form container have content top, this group right here, yeah, having this group right here. And this is just another div block. This is just another div block, guys. So in Adobe XD, you have groups. In web, you have div blocks. Div blocks are basically boxes that group together multiple elements of your web page. So I'm having my content top, and then I'm having my main form. Let's add these items in the Webflow. So my form wrapper, with my form wrapper selected, I'm going to do Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm going to drop a div block right here. This is going to be the content top, the content that goes on the top of my form container, and then with my form container selected back, I'm going to do Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm going to drop a form block. just keep in mind that your form block, so let me expand all of this so you can see. So I'm having my group on the top, and then I'm having my form block. Keep in mind that if we go right here to the element settings with the form block selected, guess what? The form block, it's another div block. So it's basically a group of elements. And what we have inside? Well, inside we have our form box that have the form tag. So what is a form tag? An HTML form tag defines a box that have the inputs, the labels, and everything related to your form, like the submit button. So the form tag just simply defines a form inside your web page. That's so simple. What else we have in this form block? Well, we have the success message and we have the error message. And the success message will be displayed when someone completes my form. The error message when something went wrong when completing my form. Maybe it might be the Webflow servers, might be because my form hasn't been properly set up. That's it. But anyway, I know that I have my form block, which in essence is another div block. It's another group of elements that have my form tag, my success message, and my error message. And guys, throughout this tutorial, I'll do my best to refer the form block as the form block, and then this one, the form box, as the form tag. Okay, just don't confuse the form block with the form tag. Let's go right here on the top with my content top selected, my div block, and let's add a class. So go right here to the style pane and let's do form-top. Good, form-top. What I have inside? Well, inside my content top right here, my form top, I have the headline and I have a paragraph. With this in mind, let's go back to the Webflow. So form top, I'm going to do Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm going to do headline, heading. Remember, every section of your web page should have an heading 2 level. Only one section have H1. That's your header section. That's the first section you have on your web page. So I know this is an H2. What else? Let's select right here form top back. Let's choose the parent element and let's do Command A, open quick find, and drop a paragraph. So I'm having my headline and I'm having my paragraph. What's next? Next is to copy the text. So let's copy this text from here. Let's paste it right here. And let's copy also my paragraph and paste it right here. What else? Well, I need to define a color for my headline and my paragraph. It's white. And I also need to define a gap and align my text to the middle. So again, you need to have this mindset. You need to know what type of display you need to apply right here. So let's first deal with the color. So I'm gonna select my form top, my content top, my group that have my heading and my paragraph, and I'm gonna go to the align and make sure I do align my text to the middle of this parent element of this group. What else? Well, I know that the color is white. Good. So now I'm controlling both colors of my headline and my paragraph from the parent element, from the form top right here. Why this is happening? Because both my headline and my paragraph, they're inheriting the color from the parent element, which is form top. And you can quickly identify the parent element by just clicking right here. You can see that my paragraph is nested inside my form top, and my form top have a predefined color, which is white. Good. Okay, what else? Well, I wanted to define the gap. So instead of adding a class to my headline, instead of adding an additional class to my paragraph, what I can use instead? Well, with my form top selected, I'm going to use our amazing display property, grid. And now with the grid display property, I can now play with the gap between my headline and my paragraph. So what I know about my grid? Well, I know I have one column and also know I have one row, because remember the direction of my grid, it's set to row. This means that every new element I add in this grid system will be created as a new row. And because I already have a heading right here, my paragraph, which is my second element in my grid system, will be created as a new row. With this in mind, let's click done. And as you can see, I'm having my heading right here and I'm having my paragraph, which is the second element. And I'm having this gap right here, simply because we have used the display grid property. Let's choose my display grid back and let's see what's gonna happen. So as you can see, indeed, I can control the gap between my headline and my paragraph. Now let's make this gap a little bit more narrowed. So I don't know, let's go to rows right here and let's say 10 pixel. Let's hit done and have a look. Yeah, it's looking nice. So I'm having 10 pixel margin, 10 pixel gap between my headline and my paragraph. And remember, we haven't added a class right here. We just used the power of the style inheritance for the text alignment and the color, and we set our form top to be display grid. That's so simple. Okay, and we're gonna do the same for all the elements, right, that we have in our form container. So we already played with the display grid, but now we want to make a gap between my content top and my main form. And as you guys probably guessed, we're going to use another display grid to control the gap between these two elements. So I'm going to select my form container, this one right here, that have my content that goes on the top and my form block, and I'm going to go to display grid. And what I know so far about this grid, well, I know it's one column and I know it's one row because it does have two elements, and the second element, which is form block, will be created as a new row. Why so? Because my grid direction is set to row. Let's hit done. Good. And now if we click on the form wrapper, if we click on edit grid, you can see that now indeed I can control the gap between my content top and my form block just by using the display grid property. So let's go back to Adobe XD and have a look. So it's 65. Let's do the same. So because we care about the power of 2, instead of 65, and because we also have text block that have a little bit of padding inside it, I'm gonna go with 62. So the gap between my top content and my form block will be 62 pixel. It's looking nice. So remember, we're trying to use a small amount of custom CSS classes. We need to use the grid when controlling the gap between the elements. We need to use inheritance when controlling the colors or the alignment of a text inside a group. And basically just having this mindset. What do we know about our form block? Well, we know about our form block that it have a form inside. It have the success message and the error message, right? So my form block, I have the form tag, I have the success message and my error message. So let's select the form block and let's add a class. That's gonna be main-form. And I can also say -w, which stands for wrapper. So this is my wrapper for my main form. Let's select our form tag. Remember, not the form block, that's a div, our form tag, because if we go to the element settings, we can see that this form box right here, it have the form HTML tag. Basically defines for our browser that the element that goes inside this group are the elements of a form. With my form tag selected, let's add a class also. So I'm gonna do main form. So simple. We have the wrapper for the main form and we have the main form itself. Okay, now what I love to do next is I love to remove all of these items Webflow adds by default and add my custom items. And as you can see, as soon as I'm removing all the items from my form tag, not my form block, Webflow adds this gray color, this background color to my form tag. Good. So I'm not gonna play a lot with my form block. What I have to do is, by default, Webflow applies a 15 pixel margin. So I'm gonna remove this margin right here. Then I'm gonna go to my main form back. And what I know about my main form, let's go back to Adobe XD and have a meditation moment. So here's my form tag right here. I know that this is a group of elements. What I know, well, I see that I have rows. So right off the bat, I know that my form tag should have the display set to grid, should have the one column and should have one row, and all new rows will be auto created. Good. With this in mind, let's go back to our Webflow, to our main form, and set the display to grid. Now what we know it's one column and it's one row. every new row will be auto-generated. Let's hit done and let's start adding our first row right here. Let's do Command A. So with my main form selected, Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm gonna drop a div block. Now this div block will be my form row. It's gonna have multiple elements, and you're gonna see in a moment what I mean by that. So with my new div block selected, let's do form dash row. This is a row of my form. If I do copy it and paste it one more time in my main form, in my form tag, you can see that indeed it's being created as a new row inside my grid system. So my form row, what I know about my form row. Let's go back to the Adobe XD and have a look. Well, I know that my form row sometimes might have two elements inside, like two columns, and sometimes might have only one column. So I know that the display should be grid and the direction should be column. Why column? Because every new element I add in this row will be created as a new column. Like this column we have right here, and also maybe another column that I can have later on. So I know that the display should be grid and the direction of my grid should be column. So with this in mind, let's go back to my form row and let me arrange a little bit my keyboard right here. And let's set my form row to be display grid. Now what I know about this grid system, I know that it's one column and one row by default. Yeah, but I also know that the direction should be column because every new element I add inside my form row will be created as a new column. So let's hit done, and inside my form row let's add our field set. So I'm gonna do Command A with my form row selected, and I'm gonna drop another div block. Good, I have my div block right here, which will be my field set. So let's add a class field. So field set dash W, which stands for wrapper. What I know about this field set, I know that my field set have a background color of white. So let's do white. What else I know? I know that I have some elements inside. I'm having my form label, which we're gonna cover in a moment what this means, and I'm having my input. Good. And as you can see, my form label and my input are grouped together. Why so? Because as you can see here below, right, I'm also having a form label, I'm having my input, but I'm also having on the right my icon. And right off the bat, I know that this will be that my field set will be display flex, because sometimes inside my field set I'm having two elements. I may have a group that have the field set that have the label and my input, and I also have the icon right here. So let me show you how all of these works. So obviously you want to think about scalability. So inside my field set, I wanted to do Command A, open up quick find, and drop another div block. And now this div block will be a group of my label and my input. So let's say field. Good, that's gonna be my field. What I know about my field, I know that my field have a label. Yeah, so I'm gonna type label, and I know that my field also have an input. So I'm gonna do input. Good. What else I know? And guys, don't worry, we're gonna talk about all of these options in a moment. What else I know? Well, I know that my field set, not the field set that might have the field and the icon, it's set to display flex. So I'm gonna do display flex. I know that my items are horizontally aligned, right? They're horizontally aligned, and I want my items to stretch the entire space. I'm gonna do stretch, and then for the justify, I'm gonna do space between. Now let me show you how this applies in action. So with my field set wrapper selected, I'm gonna drop my submit button right here. So let's do button. So form button, this one, because we need the submit. And as you can see, indeed, my field group that have the label and the input goes on the left, and my button goes on the right. Why? Because for the field set wrapper, we have applied a display flex, which pulls my elements to the left and to the right. Good. What else I have to do. So for my field, I want my field to take the entire width of my field set if there is no button or no element right here on the right. With this in mind, let's choose my field, and under the flex child, let's make sure we click this one, grow if possible. And as soon as I'm gonna click this, you can see that indeed my field is growing in size and width until he reaches another element in this field set group that we have created. And now one more thing that we can do with the field set selected, with the field selected, the one that have the label and the input. So with the field selected, I can add a little bit of padding, so let's say 10 pixel. So there is a little bit of gap between my field and my elements that will go right here on the right. This might be the submit button, this might be some icons. Okay, let's choose back my field set wrapper, the one that have my field and my submit button, and let's actually add a little bit of padding. So with my field set wrapper selected, I'm gonna hold the shift key to evenly distribute my padding from all the corners. That's it. So let's do the power of 2. Let's do 10. Good. So it's 10. I think it's looking nice. Now we have, of course, to define some styling right here to make it look identically as in our Adobe XD design. So let's do the next thing. Let's first of all remove our button. We wanna have this feeling. We wanna see how our field will grow if there is no element right here in my field set. And as you can see, indeed my field is growing in size if he does not have any obstacle right here on the right, like the submit button or an icon that we're gonna add in a moment. So let's start styling our field set. Let's start with our text field right here, and let's add a class. So I'm gonna reuse chances are I'm going to reuse this input, so I'm going to type input. Good. I have my input. By default, Webflow applies a 10 pixel margin. That's it. Good. And now by default, Webflow also applies a height, as you can see. Now please do not change this height. If the placeholder that will go on our input, let's say it's 14 or 60 pixels, don't make the same height. Like, don't make the height to be 16, because what's going to happen is it's going to be so hard for the user to type it right here, and it's going to be hard for him to access this input. Look what happens. When I'm trying to access it, I need to literally hover my mouse over this placeholder. So never in your life define a height for your input, because it's going to give you accessibility problems. What you can do is you can use padding instead. That's it. But in our instance, I'm going to remove my padding. That's it, because I already have a predefined height for my input, which is looking quite nice for me. What else I know? Well, I know that I don't have a white color. I want my background color to be controlled by this big field set wrapper right here, which we already set the background color to be white. With this in mind, let's choose back our input, and let's click on this white rectangle and choose this transparent rectangle, so we can set the background color of my input to be transparent. Good. What else I know? Well, I don't love the color of my placeholder. So how to change that? Really simple. With my input selected, I click on this arrow, which will expand different states for my class, for my element, and I'm gonna select placeholder. And now I wanted to override some of the properties. So I'm gonna select my color right here, and as you can see, I am changing the color of my placeholder. Now I want my placeholder to be a little bit too gray, right? So when someone types the data inside, like email or their first name, they can see the difference between the placeholder and what they type there. So I already set a color for my placeholder. It's looking good. Let's go back to my non-state. And what else I need to do? Well, I need to play with my label. Now, why labels are important? Because without having a label, you're gonna have this problem in the Google Lighthouse audit that form elements that do not have labels. Labels are important in web because they help assistive technologies to understand what that input is about. Is that about the first name? Is that about the last name, the email, the phone number? And also the fields, the label also have a special tag which if we select the field label, go to element settings, we can see that indeed this text label, this field label, have a custom HTML tag which is called label, which helps the browser to understand what my input is about. Is it about the first name, the email, the phone number? It also helps your users. So there's a reason why you have problems in your accessibility, because your input does not have a form label. Put simply this: if your client completes 20 or 30 fields form, and if someone call him, his phone ring, he talk for 1 hour long or 2 hours long on the phone, maybe this might be a sales call, who knows, then later on when he hang up and he wanted to resume to complete the form, guess what? He might forgot what that form is about, what he needs to add in this input. So if this input is about the first name, and if you type here first name, so first name, right, look what's gonna happen. As soon as I'm adding my information right here, the placeholder disappear. And because I'm not having a label on the top which will literally say to me first name, I might forgot, because I'm a human being, I might forgot what this field is about, and I will have to remove my entire data right here, like my entire first name, to reveal the placeholder. And what if another client calls me and for 1 more hour I'm on another call? So that's why you want to have this this label right here. That's important, so you let the user know what this input is about. So let's select our form label. Let's go to the style pane and let's choose HTML tag all labels. What this will do, this will style all the labels across our entire website. So all labels selected. By default, Webflow applies 5 pixel margin. Let's remove that. What else I know? I know that I want my form label to be aligned to the left. It is aligned to the left? Yes, it is aligned to the left. I'm gonna leave it as it is. I don't have to override or duplicate the CSS rule that already looks good. What else I know? I know that it's Rubik, it's medium, so I'm gonna say medium, and I also know it's 40 pixels. So let's do 14 pixel and hit enter. I don't want my height to be so big. It's not a clickable object, and chances are it's not gonna expand from a new line. So for the height, I'm gonna do 20. It's looking good. Now the final step I have to do is I have to exit all of this and I have to look, hey, is my form label too far from my input? Well, yeah, probably yes. So let's select my input and let's do one more thing. Let's remove the border. So with my input selected, under the borders, I'm gonna do style none to remove my border, and the width will set to 0. So I'm removing that gray border I have for my input. What else? Well, I want to move my field label a little bit to the bottom so it's closer to my input. I don't want to play with the height of my input. Remember, the input should be really easy to access for your users. So what I'm gonna do right now is, with my form label selected, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna select all labels. I'm gonna go all the way to the top where it says position, and I'm gonna change from static to relative. Why so? Because I want to manually move this item to the bottom without affecting other items, and I also want to have a z-index right here. So I want to have the z-index of 0. Yeah, why 0? Because my form label will be on the bottom of my layer, and then I'm gonna have my input on the top. With this in mind, let's choose my input back, and let's change the position from static to relative, because I also wanted to control the z-index of my input, and my z-index will be 1. It's gonna be on the top of my label. My label have a z-index of 0, which is right here, and my input is z-index 1, which is on the top of my label. Good. What else? Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select my form label back. I'm gonna choose all labels, and I'm gonna change, I think I'm gonna move a little bit down. So let's say 4 pixels. Let's do 4 pixels. 4 pixels, it's looking 9. You see this overlap right here. Don't worry, it will not impact my input. The user will still be able to click on my input right here and type his first name. That's it. He will also be able to click on my label if he needs so. So don't worry about this gap between. We already know that my input is on the top of my label, so it's going to be easy for the user to access my input. Let's finish up with styling all these elements and adding the content. So with my form label selected, I'm going to do first name. Good. And guess what? We need to select our input and define the properties and the placeholder. So with my input selected, let's hit enter to open up my input settings. And now I need to play with a little bit of these settings. So first of all, let's do name. What means name? Every input in web needs to have a name. But why Webflow needs a name? Well, real simple. If I'm typing right here first name, which is the name of this input, later on when someone submits your form, and if you go to the product settings to the form, Webflow will create a column named first name. So let me show this to you. So if I go to the product settings, because I have added a name to my input, and if I go to the forms, this is the settings form, and if I go all the way to the bottom, you can see that, yeah, indeed, I have a table right here with all of my form submission data, and the name of the columns will be the name of my input I add in that field. So as you remember, the name of that input was first name. That's why the name of my column is first name. If we go back to our designer, we can see that indeed that first name label we have on our column is the same text, is the same name we have applied for our input right here. So just keep in mind, add names for your input, so later on when someone submits the information, you quickly refer that information to your submission data form inside the Webflow product settings. Good. Placeholder. What is the placeholder? Real simple. Let's go back to Adobe XD and copy from here. How should we call it? So I'm gonna copy it, I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna paste my placeholder right here. Remember, placeholder disappear as soon as I start typing information inside this input. Okay, now let's take a moment to talk about the different text types right here. So we have a couple of them. We have plain, email, password, phone, number. Now it's important to use a proper type because first of all, that's gonna help someone who's navigating from a mobile phone to display a specific keyboard layout. And the second thing, it's about data validation and data formatting. I did for you guys right here a quick presentation, a quick infographic so you can understand all the input types. So we have type phone, which on a mobile phone will open up the dial pad, will allow you to quickly add the phone number. This is super useful when you're, for example, building a login page and you have maybe a PIN code and you want to allow the user to quickly input the PIN code. That's it. So that's the type phone. Only phone numbers are accepted. Then you have the type plain, which don't have any data validation, any data formatting. So you can literally type John Smith 3, 4 and use special characters. That's the keyboard layout. It's going to be displayed on your iPhone. Next we have type number, which will only display numbers right here, will only allow me to add numbers and symbols that are available for the numbers like points or I don't know, comma or minus sign. So the allowed data are simple numbers, float numbers like this 6.6 and negative numbers like this -40. So it's important to use a proper type, guys, so you help the accessibility of your browser to display a proper keyboard layout for your user and also format and validate the data. Lastly, we have this type email, which will have this email sign on the bottom. We'll have the dot, the period, so I can type period.com or .net or .org, whatever extension I have in my email. And in order to validate this input, in order to validate my data, I'll need to have my email sign and also my extension right here, .com. So hope it makes sense to you guys. I'm gonna have a link in the description about all of these field types and why they're important. But just like we have keyboards on your mobile phones, we have different validations right here. So if my input right here would be let's say my password, and if I preview this, as you can see, as I'm start to type it out, my characters will be hidden, and I'm also gonna have this eye icon right here which will show me the password. I obviously need to publish this because I cannot preview this inside the Webflow, but other options are numbers, and if we do preview, we can see that right now we have this up and down arrow keys, and we can go negative numbers, we can go positive numbers, we can go, for example, 4.6. that's also acceptable, right? That's it. So it's really important to use a proper text type right here. That's it. So because that's the first name, I'm gonna go with plain. Maybe his name is John Smith III, right? That's it. So that's gonna be plain. Now required means that this field is required for the user to complete. Remember, don't add an asterisk to all the required fields. Instead, add an optional label, because if you add the optional label, so just like we have right here, let me show you. Because, oh, actually haven't built this, but let's say the email address is a required thing. So what you can do is you can type here optional, and then the user will know that the email is optional, or his name is optional, and the rest of the fields are required. That's it. Don't let the user, don't add required to all the fields and not required to the fields that are optional. Instead, just add the optional fields, because the user, they're smart enough to understand that the fields that do not have the optional label are in fact required fields. Good. So this field, the first name, is required. Now autofocus, what it means? As soon as the page loads, the browser will jump to this input that is in autofocus and will also open up the keyboard on your phone. Please don't use autofocus. That's super frustrating when someone lands on your site, and instead of normally browsing your site, right, they quickly have this keyboard pop-up and their web page jumps to this section. So it's really frustrating. Don't use autofocus. Just use required for fields that are required for you. Good. Now what else? So here is my first field set. Let's copy my field set wrapper. Remember, the one that might have the fields and the one that might have some icons or some submit buttons. So I'm gonna copy this one. I'm gonna go back to my form row. I'm gonna paste it right here. Look what happens. Voila. Because my form row have a grid which have one column and one row, but the direction set to column, every new field set wrapper I'm adding right here will be created as a new column. Look, new column, new column. So by doing this, you're making your form to be scalable. You're basically creating a design system component for your form. Okay, so I'm having my second field set, and I know my second field set is about the last name. So let's select this label right here. Let's type last name. Let's go to my input, double click to open up the settings, and let's add a name. So this one will be last name because I want my column inside my Webflow form submission data to have this name, form name. And then we need the placeholder. Let's go back and type it here. Now, instead of type it here, you can go with something like more generic, like example Smith, or an example of the last name. So type it here, type text, it's plain, and it's obviously required. Good. So we have the first row. Now let's copy the first row right here. So form row, let's copy this. Let's go back to our main form, which is another display grid with that direction set to row, and let's paste it right here. And as soon as I'm pasting, you can see that my form row indeed is being pasted as a new row. Why? Because my main form have a grid system that have one column and one row, and every new item I add inside, every new form row I add inside will be created as a new row. So what I know about my second row, I know that I'm having my industry, and we're gonna talk about a new input type. So I'm having my form row and I'm having my field set, so I'm gonna remove my second field set. And as you can see, because my row have the direction to column, one column will be removed because I have only one element inside my form row. So what my third field is about? Well, it's about the industry. So let's copy the label right here. Let's paste it right here. And now, what about the industry? How they type the industry? Well, we're gonna remove this input, guys. We're gonna go back to the field, and we're gonna cover another input type, which is select. So with my field selected, I'm gonna do Command A, open up quick find, and I'm gonna do select. And now what select does is it will give me a list of options, a drop down menu from what I can select an option. So yeah, this is indeed required. I also need to add a name so it appears as a column in my form submission data. So this is going to be simple industry. Hit enter, and you can also allow multiple selections if you want so. And because we already created that input class, let's reuse it. So input. Voila, that's it. Now what it says, please select an industry. So let's copy the placeholder. And how can we change the placeholder of our input? Really simple. We go right here with my input, with my select input selected. I go to element settings to have more settings right here. And as you can see, right here we have choices. And right here we're gonna paste all the industries we're gonna have, all the choices that the user can make. So we obviously need to change the first one. We're gonna click on this pen icon, and the text is gonna be, please select an industry. Now the value is the value that will appear, guys, in your form submission data. What is the value of this select? And the value is obviously my industry. Oh my gosh. And the value is obviously the industry that's gonna appear in my form submission data table inside my project settings. So my value is going to be empty. There's been no value here because they need to make a choice. Now let's say the first choice will be, let's say an industry, I don't know. Let's do design. That's an industry. So the text, this is the text that will appear in this drop down menu, and the value is the value will be applied when the form is being submitted. So the value is also design. Design. Or you can do design and art, something along those lines. Remember that your clients will not see design and arts. You will see design. So let's click save. So we have all the choices right here, and if we do a preview, we can see that we have multiple choices right here. Good. We can choose design, we can choose development, we can choose education. That's it. So we just covered another input type, which is select. Now you have more types here. I'm gonna make sure I leave an article in the video description about different types like checkboxes, radio buttons. We know that our second row also have this icon right here. So let's select our icon. Let's do right click and export selected. And we're gonna export these as an SVG. We're gonna paste an embed SVG code. Let's make sure we optimize this. We minify the SVG code, and let's choose export. Good. So my icon is right here. So let's open up inside my Atom. And guys, I'm gonna have the Atom link in the video description so you can download it. Good. So we have to add the current color. Fill equal current color attribute, so we can control the color of this icon from the Webflow. So here's my icon. It's remember the SVG illustration is just an HTML code with the SVG tag applied. So let's do view, toggle soft wrap to view the entire code, and we have this fill right here. So let's actually remove it from here because I wanted to make it somewhere here. So let's do fill equal double quotes current color. Good. Now I'm gonna leave the width and height as it is, right? It's because we're gonna apply the flex. So let's copy the entire code. Let's go back to our Webflow, and look, we have the form row. Inside the form row we have the field set, and inside my field set I'm gonna do embed, and inside my embed I'm gonna paste my code and click save and close. And now as you can see, indeed my icon is taking the color from the field set wrapper, and the field set wrapper color is set to black. Now what I have to do is I have to choose my HTML embed and add a class. So let's say field icon. Field icon, what I know about my icon, it's 24 by 24. I want to maintain this 1:1 aspect ratio, so 24 by 24 pixel, and I want the SVG code that goes inside this embed to be aligned to the middle both vertically and horizontally. That's why I'm going to choose display flex align to the center both vertically and horizontally. Now what else? Well, I have to define a custom color. So let's go back to our Adobe XD and let's have a look what color we have right here. Let's click on our icon, let's click on fill, copy the color. Let's go back to the Webflow and paste it right here. And because we have applied that current color, that fill equal current color attribute to our SVG code, it will take the color from the typography right here. Good, good. It's looking good. Now what else we have to do? Well, our icon, it's not aligned to the middle. Why so? Well, chances are because our field set have this stretch right here. So let's just align all the items to the middle. That's it. That's it. And now as we're developing these guys, you can probably know that we also need to play a little bit with the padding. So let's add more padding right here. Now let's do the power of 2. Let's do 10. Let's do 10. And let's do a little bit more padding from here. And maybe a few padding from the bottom. Maybe let's do 2. Maybe 2 is too small. Let's do 4. So do 4. Good. That's it. It's looking nice. I have my icon right here. And guess what? Let's finish up our form. So what else? We have one more row. So let's copy our form row right here. Let's copy this. And I know that I don't need a row that have the select. So I'm gonna copy another form. This one with the first name and last name. Let's copy these. Let's choose back my main form and paste it right here. Good. What I know about my last row? Well, I know that I need to remove one field set from my row. Good. I know that that's about my email address, so let's change the label. Let's do email address. Let's go right here to my input, double click to open up the settings, and that's gonna be email address because that's exactly how I want my column inside my form submission data to be named. And let's have the placeholder also. So type your email address here. Let's paste it here. Good. And it's indeed a required field, but this time the text type is email because why? I want my data to be validated. I want my data to have the, so let me do a quick zoom out. I want my data to have the email icon and also the extension, so .com, .org, or .net, wherever the extension is. Let's go back to the Webflow. Let's close this one and let's see what else we have to add here. Well, we have to add our form submit button. This one, get started. So with my field set selected, yeah, this one that have the field, with my field set selected, remember that's the display flex space between. I'm gonna do Command A, open up quick find, and I'm gonna drop a form button. Good. Now as you can see, my form button is being aligned right here to the right, and because we have applied to our field flex grow, it will take the entire space until it reaches our submit button. So what we have to do right here? Well, we have to define a class for our submit button. So we already created a basic class for our button, but this time, as you can see, we have a height, a predefined height. I want the height of my button to be controlled by the padding. So guess what? I'm gonna do a combo class right here, which will be btn-sm, which stands for small. I'm gonna remove the height. So on the height, I'm gonna say auto because I want my height to be controlled by the padding. And then what else? Well, I can do a little bit more padding right here. Yeah, 14 is good. Let's do double click and see and change the button text. So it says get started. Okay. And we'll leave this color as it is because if we're gonna use this color, guys, it's gonna give us accessibility and contrast ratio problems. Please wait, I think it's looking good. Let's hit enter to apply this text, and voila, we have our entire form right here, fully scalable. What else our form have? Well, our main form, the group that have the form tag right here, yeah, the form tag, also have this info message. So let's copy this info message, and with my form selected, with my form tag selected, let's do Command A, open up the quick find, and let's drop a paragraph right here. Good. Remember, if you have a sentence, you want to use paragraph. Don't use text block. Use text blocks only for labels. For example, labels like this one for whom. If you have at least one sentence, use paragraph. So let's choose our paragraph, Command B to paste it. And guess what? Well, it's black, but we already know that this black can be changed by inheritance from another class. So let's choose our main form. Let's go right here, main form, and let's set the color to be white. And as you can see, my field label is now white because it's inheriting the color from its parent, which is our main form. So let's select all labels and let's define a new color. Good. Now all my labels are black. What else? Well, I know that this paragraph right here, it's centered. So let's select my paragraph right here and let's add a class. So we're gonna do form message. Good. And now the thing is that chances are on some pages where I'm gonna reuse this form message, my form message will be aligned to the left, might be aligned to the center, right? It might be aligned to the right. So that's why I want to have a basic form message that will have the text aligned to the center, and then I can add a combo class and align it to the left. That's it. And what else I know? Well, I know that my message is 40 pixels, and let's do 24 right here, and I know have a max width of 400 pixel. So let's go back, and with my form message selected, max width 400 pixel. What else? Well, I know that it lives inside a grid, and I wanted this to be centered inside his cell. So with the form message selected, I'm gonna go all the way to the top, and under the grid child's panel, I have justify. I'm gonna click justify center. That's all. That's all I have to do. And voila, we have our form ready to rock. Okay, now last thing to do is obviously we have to publish the changes and do a Google Lighthouse audit to see exactly how we build this section and if we build it correctly. So let's open up. Yeah, just disregard this goat image I'm having on my Microsoft Edge. Let's scroll all the way to the bottom. This is my form. You can see that because we use the proper type, the autofill also autofill from these properties right here. So Chris for the first name, this is for the last name, right? Same goes for the email. It will only show me email addresses. And now for the industry, it's not an autofill because I never saved an industry field in my autofill. That's it. And when I click get started, it obviously asks me to complete all the required fields. Okie dokie. Now let's do a Lighthouse audit. Right click, inspect, we go to the Lighthouse, and if you don't have these guys, just click on these three dots, actually not these three dots, this right here, more tools, and then you have Lighthouse. So Lighthouse, I'm going to do performance, best practices, accessibility, and SEO for the desktop and generate report. So let's have a look. Voila, 100%. Good. So that's it, because we have used form labels, we have maintained a good structure and scalable structure for our form block. That's why we have all of this on 100%. That's it. So you can see no issues. This one you have right here is because this made in Webflow badge, but if you host it on a live domain, you will not have this problem. For accessibility, no issues whatsoever. No problems with the contrast ratio, no problems with form elements do not have labels. So all looking good. Right guys, so I hope this video was super informative for you. Please apologize me for making so long videos, but I want to convey the most of the value. I want to share my value, my expertise to you, and I hope that you'll apply all of these tips that we have learned today. Just remember, all of your inputs needs to have labels. We also talked about the display grid. We one more time convinced ourselves that this grid system, it's really amazing. It do really magical stuff. It allows us to control the gap between the elements, and it most of the time it allows us to build scalable UI system. It allows us to group different elements, move the elements inside a grid without affecting the hierarchy of a site, move the elements on different breakpoints, and lastly we also covered how this color, how this style inheritance works. That's it. So I hope it was super informative for you guys. Now make your form, submit your data, and see how exactly it's being displayed inside your Webflow form submission data. As always, make sure you like this video, make sure you do subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you're notified next time I'm uploading a new video. If you have any questions, let me know down in the video description. I'm gonna have an FAQ section with commonly asked questions so you can quickly find an answer for you. Thanks one more time for watching this video. Love you all. Bye bye.